that I feel like this month, with the theme being action, that you guys coerced us a little bit, because when you are asked to speak on action, you're sort of obligated to act on it. And my talk, I want to talk more today about my decision to pursue the project of key log rolling. And I won't talk as much about the process of starting the business, but if you have any questions about that during the Q&A or afterwards, definitely feel free to come up and ask some questions about it. So, I have, like Tess said, I come from a family of world champion log rollers. And I know enough by now that I've probably said that phrase about 10,000 times in my life. And I know by now that some people are probably wondering that what the heck is log rolling and how do you fall into an entire family of them. So I'll briefly touch on the history of the sport and our family history with it, and then how we got here with key log rolling. Log rolling is a sport that came out of a way of life. It came out of the North Woods, and log drivers, lumberjacks, would spend all winter long chopping down trees in the forest and piling them up along the riverbanks. In the springtime, when the rivers were flowing fast and high, they would send the logs down the rivers to the sawmill towns. And it was a really dangerous job, and it was a job full of action. And the log drivers would wear spiked boots and have long poles, and they would jump from log to log, basically herding these logs down the riverbanks. But they realized it was actually pretty fun. And what happens when you step on a log in the water? It starts to spin, so there's a balance challenge here. And in the logging camps, they would start to challenge one another to see who was the better log roller. And eventually they would start to hold competitions like the one you see here. It's actually in Stillwater. Must be a 4th of July festival. It's July 5th, 1909. And very soon after the log drives, people were learning how to log roll for fun and fitness and recreation that weren't actually lumberjacks or log drivers. So we have to kind of buck that stereotype a little bit, and as Tess today actually, demonstrated that just because you log roll doesn't mean you're a lumberjack or a lumberjill. You have women learning how to log roll, and we're very competitive in the sport and talking about the fitness benefits of log rolling. So it's a really unique thing that very early on, 1920s, 1930s, the sport that was an occupation is now a recreation, and really valued for that. So the sport was basically passed down by a small group of dedicated athletes, and one of those dedicated athletes was my mom, Judy Hoeschler. She grew up in a small town in northern Wisconsin, Hayward. I'm sure some of you know about it, where the World Log Rolling and Lumberjack Championships were held, and she was involved in one of the first youth log rolling schools. She, grew up in a single-parent family with 6 kids, and her mom was looking for something for the kids to do, so she signed them up for log rolling. As a young girl in the late 60s in a small town, there aren't that many opportunities for girls in sports, and my mom was a very active young girl, and she fell in love with the sport and won her first world championship at 16 and went on to win 7 titles. And even more than her love of log rolling, she had a love of teaching log rolling. This is my mom actually teaching my 2 older sisters. And she really passed that love of log rolling on to me. So she started teaching log rolling to youth, and she actually started the first development in the sport, which is to put carpet on the logs, and so now kids were able to wear tennis shoes. We could do it in swimming pools. And this sport, had a little bit of a resurgence, especially at YMCAs and other youth programs around the Midwest. So like I said, she passed this love of log rolling on to me, and this love of teaching. I'm the one on the right in the awesome pink shorts. And, you know, I started teaching log rolling. You know, I had a little neighborhood log rolling school. I brought that to our city local park and rec department, and I went to school on the East Coast for high school and college, and you know, it was definitely something that was unique and that people identified me with, and you know, I felt this sort of responsibility to share the sport with others, and you know, I taught log rolling classes at our local YMCA's out in New Hampshire. My sisters had started a log rolling club at our college, Middlebury College in Vermont, and when I got there, I kind of boosted it up a little bit. We had our first official log rolling tournament at the school, and you know, for all of these things that log rolling was obviously like my main identifier. That was something that people like identified me with, but I didn't necessarily identify it as like my number one identifier. I was an art history major. I considered myself an academic. I was really laying out this other path for myself. I did internships in New York City in the summer, and you know, again, log rolling was just this kind of extracurricular activity, something that made me unique, and something that I really did sort of feel more of a responsibility to share with others. I saw that it was really cool and that people were intrigued by it. But if you had asked me when I graduated from college, you know, what my top passions were, I don't even know if I would have said that log rolling, you know, it was one of those. And so when my parents approached me with this idea to create a synthetic log rolling log, I was really hesitant. You know, again, like I said, I've been laying out this path for myself, and log rolling was something that I always kind of had to not apologize for, but explain. And you know, it was like this quirky niche sport that I did. And so, you know, all of a sudden I'm presented with this opportunity to go on this very different path. And, you know, I guess I should back up a little bit. Why did my parents have this idea to create a synthetic log rolling log? You know, as you can see here, we're using wood logs. They're 500 pounds, they're really heavy, and we really have this love of the sport and this love of promoting it, and that's really challenging when your equipment weighs 500 pounds. And we saw that it had potential for growth, but it needed a synthetic, portable piece of equipment, and we thought that if we had that, we really could make it grow. And it was really my mom's brainchild, and something that she had been wanting to do for a while, but just, you know, it hadn't been the right time in her life to start this business. So you know, I graduated in 2010, wasn't a great economy. I was an art history major, and they thought we're gonna sneak in and kind of get her here, and you know, she can be the one to take this on. And like I said, I was hesitant at first, but here we are, 5 years later, and we have programs in over 40 states. We've sold over 300 key logs. So why did I decide to act on it? Amelia Earhart once said, I found this on Instagram this week, it was like the best thing that showed up. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. So the most difficult thing for me was to make that decision to pursue log rolling, or to pursue key log rolling. And once I made that decision, the rest has felt pretty easy, very natural, and it really is just our tenacity and our willingness to work hard to make it happen. So why did I decide to act? Three reasons, I think. My pride, my competitive nature, and my sense of responsibility. And I'm very aware that those sound like three very miserable reasons to act on something. So I am going to explain that a little bit. My pride. I had worked hard at log rolling my entire life, and I knew that it was a really thrilling sport, and you know, I knew that it had this intensity and this competitive side to it, and It was a great spectator sport. And I worked really hard at it, and I wanted more credit for myself and for the sport. I wanted the sport to be more credible. I didn't want log rolling to be this kind of silly thing that people kind of laughed at. Oh, that's funny that you log roll. And so it really was my pride. I knew that this could be something bigger than it was. My competitive nature. As you can imagine, I'm the smaller one on the right again. I knew that, not that, people were like racing to create the synthetic log rolling log or anything, but I knew that a small part of me knew that a really big part of me would be pretty bummed if someone else were the one to do this. We had been very involved in the sport and been really involved in promoting it and growing it, and if someone else had taken on this idea and run with it, I would have been obviously very excited for the sport, but I would have been like, oh, like I could have done that. And finally, my sense of responsibility. And sense of familial responsibility. Like I said, this was my mom's brainchild, and this was something that she was very passionate about. And not just because she was a world champion log roller and I wanted to fulfill her dreams, but because I saw the work that she had put into growing the sport, like I said, creating the first development by carpeting the logs for kids, and organizing the sport, promoting it. And I felt that if I didn't act on this, that it might not get done in her lifetime, and she might not see the sport grow in the way that she wanted it to. So, what has been the result of all of this action? Like I said, the tenacity has been a huge thing. Early on, I didn't know where this was going. A lot of times I was just working to make it work. And I think that's the most surprising result of all of this is that I have more passion for log rolling now than I ever imagined. Like I said, I didn't really view log rolling necessarily as my #1 passion, and it seems really natural now, but all of these people that we have learned, that we have taught how to log roll, they've been the ones to give me passion for the sport. This concept of the beginner's mind. I learned how to log, my mother was a 7-time world champion log roller. I learned to log roll before I could swim. I don't remember learning how to log roll. And being able to teach people every day, every week, how to log roll, and I almost get to live vicariously through their experience and through their enthusiasm. Someone said to me once, oh gosh, you must get so tired of teaching people all the time. And I thought about it, and I think before this experience, I probably would have said, yeah, I know, it's like miserable teaching all these new beginners how to log roll. But really, it's not. I'm surprised. I really surprise myself when I can sit in the water for 3 hours and teach new people. And it's them. It's their enthusiasm for the sport that I'm able to, like I said, live vicariously through them. And I get to experience the sport anew every time I get out there. And it's like this passion feedback loop. Like they give me this passion, and then I can instill that in my teaching and sharing the sport with them. My view of log rolling or of the sport has also really changed. We have people doing new things on the sport. They're taking ownership of it. They're doing, yoga poses on it. They're spinning around, and there are people in California, surfers in California, and summer camps in Maine, and little communities in Indiana and Ohio. And there's something about log rolling that they all connect with, this balanced challenge that's really universal. It's not just this Northwoods sport. That's a summer camp. They asked them to draw what they were, what they were thankful for at camp, and they were thankful for the key log. You know that saying, this is really cliche, everything I need to know in life I learned in kindergarten? Well, I think everything I need to know about starting a business I learned from log rolling. So, balance. Well, balance is obviously key in log rolling. That's a really obvious one. Everyone always says, oh, you must have really great balance. And it's true. I mean, there is a huge balance component to it. And in starting a business, it's all about balance. It's about work-life balance. It's about balancing your business. You have to, as you move forward, you have to, balance all of your, the people that are working with you and the vision that you have. It's a huge part of life, and of course, starting a business. Core is huge in log rolling. And this one is a little bit embarrassing. You're always finding your core in log rolling. You're always having to get back to that center and really develop your core strength, your core center on the log. And in starting a business, you have to, find your core strengths and stick with them. And you always have to revisit them. We're always going back to what are our core strengths, because they're all of these shiny objects and things that you can, that can distract you. And you have to really establish your core strengths and remind yourself of them and revisit them. And one of our core strengths at Key Log Rolling is fun. And so I think the only reason why I really look like this here is because I'm laughing so hard and my whole stomach is just flexed. And so I think I thought that was an appropriate one because it's not log rolling. It's not just about this intense core. It really is about this core value of fun. Taking steps. In log rolling, the number one thing in log rolling is to always keep your feet moving. You can never, ever stop moving your feet in log rolling. It's incredible. And you're not only taking steps forward, but half the time you're taking steps backwards. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's, taking steps backward is going to keep you up on the log. And in starting in a business and running a business, you have to be okay with taking a step back, with refocusing, with shuffling back before you get too far along. And it is tough because you take these steps forward and then you're like, oh man, now I gotta take these steps backwards. But that's what keeps you on top. That's what, it's not necessarily always just forward movement, it's just staying on top. Log rolling, staying on the top center of the log is crucial, and that's whether you're taking steps forward or steps backward. And the other thing in log rolling is that taking backwards locomotion for everyone is actually expends more energy than forward locomotion, which is I think why you get so tired in log rolling. Half the time you are going backwards. So in life, taking steps backward, that oftentimes takes more work and more effort than going forward. Mental toughness. In log rolling, it's probably 90% mental. Things are happening so fast, and there's a really crazy combination of being really relaxed and sort of zen, but also being able to react and be so in tune to what's going on. And you fall off a lot in log rolling. At the end of the day, everyone falls in log rolling, and you have to have that toughness to get back up there and fight. There's a serious fight or flight mode that goes on when you step on the log in log rolling, and you think, I could just I could just jump off right now, and all of this stress and anxiety would be done, and I can just walk away from that. And sometimes you feel like that when you're starting a business. You know, I could just set this all aside and do something else. And you have to fight that urge a lot of times. And you have to find, going back to the balance, you have to find that balance of being relaxed and being at ease and enjoying your life, but also, you know, having that acute focus and being able to react quickly and being tough and letting things slide off your back. Lastly, the number one thing I think I've learned from log rolling is letting go of your ego. It's really tough to stand out on a log in front of, whether it's 5 other people or thousands of other people, and take steps on the log, and everyone is watching you. And when you fall in, you fall into the water and you're soaking wet, and your opponent is standing up on the log over you, and you're gasping for breath, and all you can think of is how, you know, oh, that was so embarrassing, you know, like, and or I'm so disappointed. And as you can see here, I'm clearly falling into the water, and at this point I'm probably gonna have to let go of my ego. You know, you in a business, every decision or in life even, every decision seems like, it's like, if this doesn't go right, it's the end. Like this, you know, everyone is watching me, like and it's not at all. In log rolling, I mean, with key log rolling, we, you know, every little thing that we do, we're always like, oh my gosh, everyone's watching us. If, you know, we have to make the right decision here, and a lot of times people aren't really watching you, so you have to that's really all of like your own, that's your own internal thing. And usually people are actually really like, wow, look what you guys have done. That's really cool. And it's, you know, same thing in log rolling. People are like, wow, like, gosh, I couldn't get up there and do that in front of everyone. And so you just, you know, in a business, you think that like every decision is a reflection of you. And it is in a sense, but you just have to like keep moving things forward. Like I said, taking steps forward, taking steps back. So I guess in closing, like I said, everything I need to know about starting this business of key log rolling, really I did learn from log rolling. Balance, core, taking steps forward, taking steps backward constantly, the mental toughness, and letting go of your ego. And I really hope that all of you guys will come and try it sometime, because it really is a unique experience. It's just an amazing sport, and it's been, this has been a really awesome journey, and I couldn't have done it alone. We've had so much help, so many people acting on this, so many hands that are touching this. I hope you guys will get involved. So thank you for your time today, and any questions